On a bitterly cold winter afternoon, the girl who had once shone as the brightest star at this school now sat in silence, just 9 years old, delicate and overlooked due to her illness. At the very instant, she experienced the depths of solitude and despair. A black janitor silently took a seat beside her. Nothing superfluous, no insincere reassurances, merely a soothing cup of tea delicately set between them. Unbeknownst to them, this seemingly ordinary moment would alter the course of their lives in ways they could never have imagined. Before we embark on this narrative journey, please share your location with us. We are eager to hear your thoughts. Wellington Academy radiated a sense of aspiration and drive. Everything gleamed, refined, crafted for futures entwined in ivy, and once Savannah Blake had shone as its most radiant star. She glided through the marble corridors, an embodiment of promise, her long blonde hair flowing behind her, ballet slippers, tapping rhythmically, while her paintings adorned the glass cases in the East Wing. People didn't merely admire Savannah, they regarded her as the model to emulate. The offspring of biotech magnates, she embodied beauty, talent, and legacy all in one remarkable package. Yet that girl had vanished. She now traversed the familiar corridors in quietude, her head bowed beneath a muted wool beanie. Her silhouette appeared more slender, her motions more languid. Her cheeks, once vibrant, now bore the delicate pallor of chemotherapy. Her lips were dry at the edges, her eyes lacking luster far away, ceased to be admired. No one genuinely saw her anymore. Some gave rigid smiles or brief nods before looking away. During lunch, the chair next to her stayed unoccupied, despite the bustling crowds at every other table. As she walked in, the chatter faded, giving way to hushed murmurs. I've heard whispers that she may not reach graduation. Is leukemia something that can be spread from person to person? She listened intently to every word. Each thoughtless word layered itself within the emptiness she bore. And more troubling than the fear was the sense of pity. The teachers now smiled, excessively, spoke at a deliberate pace, handling her as if she were fragile and on the verge of breaking. No one inquired about her needs. The truth remained unspoken by all. She wished to avoid the burden of strength. She had no desire to become a representation. She longed for someone to truly recognize her, not the shadows of her past, nor the anxieties of her future, but the person she was in that moment. But ever since she fell ill, the light ceased to reach her. It slipped past her. The afternoon wind was crisp and unforgiving, tugging at the hem of Savannah's coat as she settled behind the gym, a place where solitude reigned and the world seemed to fade away. She sat in a tight ball, her knees drawn close, her forehead gently resting on her sleeves. Her head throbbed with pain, her gaze ignited with intensity. The discomfort wasn't intense, it was monotonous, profound, unyielding, akin to a vibration. Beneath her flesh, she preferred to remain unnoticed, not by educators with gentle tones and overly broad grins, not by students who cast looks drenched in trepidation or uncomfortable compassion, not even by the mirror, which had ceased to show the girl captured in yearbook photos or dance trophies. She refused to become just a fleeting thought. She yearned for escape. At that moment she became aware of footsteps approaching, gentle, calculated, calm and measured. She kept her gaze fixed downward. Initially the sharp aroma of lemon cleanser filled the air, soon accompanied by the soft sound of ceramic gently clinking together. A small steaming mug was set down on the bench beside her, accompanied by a thick grey beanie, handcrafted with care, showing a touch of wear. Then the lady took a seat. Keep your distance, not too distant, simply present. It was none other than Miss Delilah Carter, the custodian of the school. The sole black adult Savannah had encountered at Wellington, not positioned behind a desk or serving in the cafeteria. She had just begun a few weeks prior, having moved over from another district. The arrival of her went unnoticed by most students. Miss Carter herself was still unfamiliar with many names, and Savannah's face, now obscured by the weight of winter and stillness, failed to convey any sense of uniqueness. Savannah scarcely recognized her own name. No one truly did. Most students overlooked her. However, Today is not the day. Miss Carter failed to inquire about her well-being, didn't offer her any of those phrases intended to soothe, but instead intensified the pain. She observed the trees across the field as if they were engaged in conversation, and she was an attentive listener. After a moment, Savannah leaned in and softly said, "You don't have to do this. I understand." A silence lingered between them, taut and heavy, as if time itself had taken a deep breath and forgotten to exhale. "Everyone else tries to help," Savannah said, her voice trembling. "It feels as though they're addressing a version of me that no longer exists. Not at this moment." Miss Carter inclined her head with deliberation. "That's because they see right through you, darling, as if you were made of glass. People often feel anxious when confronted with something beyond their control." Savannah's voice trembled. "What makes you so unafraid?" At last Miss Carter turned, not with sympathy but with a stronger resolve. "I've been overlooked my entire existence. Excessively dark, overly silent, overwhelmingly abundant. Absolutely not. I'm not afraid of a sick white girl. I feel a deep unease about how this environment encourages individuals to turn a blind eye. It struck deeply, absolutely accurate, and not who I was," Savannah murmured, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "Very well," Miss Carter responded. "Perhaps the person you used to be wasn't prepared for what lies ahead." Savannah felt a sharp sting in her eyes, not from suffering but from the soft embrace of recognition. After months of solitude, the quiet enveloping her finally felt full. It felt embraced. As she extended her hand toward the mug, a subtle tremor lingered in her fingers. The tea offered no warmth. It was for the comfort of knowing someone remained. The subsequent days passed softly, akin to leaves floating on a gentle breeze, leisurely and without fanfare. Savannah kept the bench behind the gym a secret, along with the tea and the silence that felt soothing, yet a change had occurred. Delicate, akin to the gentle shift of light as evening approaches, Miss Carter returned the following day, and the following. She never expressed, "I'm here for you." She never inquired about Savannah's feelings. She effortlessly arrived, consistent, reliable, unwavering. At times she would present little treasures, a scarf, a paper cup of soup, a well-loved novel with pages creased as if someone had truly experienced its story. None of it sought appreciation. It simply was. Subtle treasures for a young woman discovering the art of presence. They always maintained a certain distance. At times, Savannah would pick up a pencil and let her imagination flow onto the page. Other times, she would simply let the moment pass without a single stroke. Miss Carter gathered leaves, polished benches, or simply stood, observing the trees exhale. The stillness enveloped them, thickening with unspoken words. Not uncomfortable, not devoid, complete. On the fifth afternoon, Savannah finally shattered it. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said, her gaze fixed on the empty page resting on her lap. Miss Carter rested against her broom. "What are you up to?" "This, existing in this moment. You have no idea who I am." Miss Carter shrugged, her gaze gentle. "Perhaps I don't require your name to recognize your presence." That struck deeper than Savannah anticipated. She set her pencil down. Others offer smiles and words like brave or beautiful. However, their intentions are not genuine. They are filled with fear. My apologies, or perhaps a combination of the two. Miss Carter settled into her seat with a measured grace, each movement purposeful and serene. "Darling, many believe that sadness is something to be fixed. It feels far too burdensome to grasp. They present you with words that gleam, yet carry no substance." Savannah gazed at her, truly gazed, and for the first time, she didn't see herself, mirrored as a patient or a burden. "I feel shattered," she murmured. Miss Carter remained unperturbed. "You are whole just as you are. You are simply experiencing all the emotions you've been holding back." They lingered in that position for some time. Two figures clad in winter coats stand side by side, comfortably embracing the quiet between them. That day, the cold was less fierce. Perhaps it was the quietude shared that rendered the chill more bearable. Savannah opened her sketchbook, her pencil poised delicately. She sketched instinctively. She sat beneath a tree, small and bald. Next to her, a shadowy presence, motionless, anchored. Their forms remained distinct, yet their silhouettes intertwined. Upon completion, she chose not to reveal the drawing. There was no necessity for her to do so. She softly shut the notebook and murmured, "Thank you for allowing me to embrace my sadness." Miss Carter offered a gentle smile. "Sadness doesn't require a solution, darling. It simply requires a place to rest." And in that instant, Savannah finally released it. She may not have felt completely healed, but she embraced her humanity, and that was sufficient. The studio lingered with the scent of turpentine and clay. Everything remained the same, from the walls adorned with student creations to the vibrant sweater Miss Hathaway donned. As if it could uplift spirits and bring a sense of comfort, Savannah found herself in a place she hadn't visited in weeks, perhaps even longer. Yet here she was, at her familiar desk, sketchbook spread wide, pencil poised in her grasp. Her breath felt constricted within her chest. Today's prompt, Miss Hathaway declared, her voice gliding effortlessly as if it had been practiced, is a self-portrait, capturing not merely your appearance, but your emotions as well. Capture your spirit and keep in mind, her smile was radiant, create something lovely. The word struck with the force of a blow. Savannah remained still. Students gathered around her, capturing their own likenesses, focusing on lashes, cheekbones, and flawless symmetry. She gazed at her empty page. Inspiration. What does that even signify at this point? She sketched her shoulders, the subtle curve of her collarbone, the dress she donned last spring before everything shifted. At that moment, she came to a halt. The pencil lingered just above the page, poised for creation. There was nothing to sketch, no gentle outline to conceal oneself within. Her hand quivered. Thus she omitted the head in her drawing. Instead, she illustrated a tumultuous storm, jagged, fierce, exposed. A whirlwind where her visage once resided. It was unfiltered, and it was authentic. Miss Hathaway glided through the room, dispensing compliments that failed to resonate. Upon arriving in Savannah, she took a moment to reflect. "Oh," she whispered gently, "how fascinating." Savannah kept her gaze fixed downward. "The teacher suggested that you might illustrate your hair as it once was, long, golden, and beautiful, simply to bring harmony to the piece." Silence enveloped the room. A cough echoed through the room. A pencil glided across the page, then came to an abrupt halt. Savannah finally raised her gaze, her voice unwavering yet frosty. "The hair has disappeared. I have transformed beyond that identity." Miss Hathaway's eyes fluttered in surprise. "Absolutely, my dear. Merely a thought to consider. There's no reason to feel distressed." Savannah remained silent. She shut her sketchbook and rose to her feet. She left without a single soul intervening. She reached the midpoint of the hallway when her knees gave way beneath her. She perched on the stairs, fists tightened, battling the urge to weep. They overlooked her, not truly perceiving her essence, merely the faded image that conformed to their notions of beauty and acceptance. Yet, amidst the stillness, her mind echoed with the sound of Miss Carter's voice. At times, sorrow simply requires a place to rest. So Savannah allowed herself to linger in the pain, in the fury, in the reality that she was no longer their shining star. And perhaps that was perfectly fine. She shut her eyes, inhaling deeply, and understood that the tempest she had conjured was not a void. It was an expanse, a canvas for transformation. That evening, Savannah chose not to join us for dinner. She remained in her room, nestled under a heap of blankets that had lost their warmth. The silence in the house was palpable. Each sound, the ticking clock, the gentle hum of the heater, her mother's soft footsteps in the hallway, pressed against her skin like an unyielding weight. She gazed at the ceiling, her vision softening at the periphery. Her chest felt constricted, her arms tingled with a dull ache, and her throat burned from the effort of suppressing what yearned to break free. As her mother finally knocked, Savannah chose silence. The door creaked open, revealing Alicia Blake poised with a tray in her grasp. A delicate porcelain dish holds chicken broth, crackers and pills, each element a whisper of comfort and care. Her voice was cautious, as if treading on fragile ground. Darling, it's important for you to have something to eat, and it's time for your medication. Savannah averted her gaze. I have no appetite. Her mother hesitated. Another dose cannot be. Missed Savvy? We discussed this matter. I'm indifferent. There was silence, the sort that felt weary, lacking any trace of patience. Alicia placed the tray on the dresser and made her way across the room. You possess greater strength than you realize. You are my brave champion. At that moment, Savannah rose gradually, her gaze intense. Please refrain from using that term for me. Her mother stared in disbelief. What should I call you? A champion. This feels like a twisted honor, as if I should take pride in my thinning hair. The nausea that leads me to plastic bags, and the charade of others pretending I still fit in. Her voice trembled. I lack strength. I find myself utterly drained. Alicia knelt beside the bed, her fingers outstretched toward her daughter's hand, yet Savannah withdrew it, creating a palpable distance between them. You simply don't understand. You continue to speak of me as if I haven't changed since last year, but I have evolved. She has left. She has passed away. I no longer wish to engage in conflict if it requires me to maintain the illusion of her presence. Her mother stood still, paralyzed by shock, and for a fleeting moment the only sound that filled the air was Savannah's breath, harsh, erratic, and unsteady. Alicia rose abruptly, her movements swift, and exited without uttering a single word. Savannah lingered in the shadows for what felt like an eternity, quaking with unease. She left the tray untouched. She remained still until the dawn broke. The following day, she chose not to attend class. She meandered along the periphery of the school grounds, ultimately finding herself in the rear courtyard, where the trees stood stark and bare from the lingering grip of winter. Miss Carter was present, as though she had an inkling. She remained, silent initially, merely gazing at Savannah as she always did, devoid of expectation, devoid of fear. Savannah chose not to take a seat this time. She stood, arms folded, chin quivering. I neglected to take my medicine. Miss Carter arched an eyebrow. Is that so? Savannah gave a slight nod. I'm uncertain if I will. I no longer wish to maintain this facade. I feel a strong dislike for my body. I dislike how people address me as if I'm delicate or courageous or motivational when all I feel is exhausted from being in this place. Miss Carter remained unfazed. She rested against her broom, allowing the words to linger in the air like garments swaying on a line. Then she said, softly, yet with conviction, have you ever encountered someone who intentionally shaved their head? Savannah blinked, taken by surprise. Excuse me? Miss Carter gazed over the expanse of green grass. My little sister, Lenora. Her hair was so abundant it could have filled 10 pillows, with curls resembling soft rain clouds. However, upon reaching her 17th year, she decided to remove it all, clear, devoid of any pretense. People believed she had lost her mind. But do you know what she remarked? Savannah remained silent. Miss Carter beamed. It was a tiny, sorrowful thing, she remarked. I feel perfectly fine. I simply wish for the world to cease its affection for me, based on something I haven't truly deserved. Allow them to cherish what remains once that is no longer present. She allowed that to sink in. Lenora was not afflicted with cancer. She was not on the brink of death. Yet she understood the weight of losing something that the world insisted was everything. And she remained unwavering. If you can embrace yourself when you're laid bare to your very essence, your authentic, vulnerable and fierce self, then perhaps that's the only love that truly counts. Savannah's lips parted, yet silence lingered. Miss Carter advanced, narrowing the space until her presence was unmistakable. You don't need to be a fighter, darling, but don't allow this pain to deceive you into vanishing. You remain present. Do you understand what I'm saying? At this moment, continuing to draw breath, continuing to evolve. The breeze intensified. Savannah tightened the scarf around her neck, and a single tear slipped down, silent, hot, and pure. She carefully wiped it away, then took a seat next to Miss Carter, marking the first time she did so without an invitation. She failed to express her gratitude. No need to. Some truths transcended the limits of language. 7 days went by. The days passed with a gentle rhythm, slower, yet more deliberate. Savannah started her medication, not due to external pressure, but out of her own decision. She referred to it as something else entirely. She referred to it as something else entirely. She referred to it as remaining. Certain mornings lingered with a weight that was hard to shake off. Some nights remained vivid. Yet a distance had formed amidst the pain now. Even in its limited expanse, that space radiated light. Miss Carter remained silent about the breakdown, avoided any mention of the tears, and continued to treat Savannah as if nothing had shifted. Perhaps that was the essence of it all. Healing was a journey best kept private. It was a treasure to safeguard. Thus they maintained their cadence. Quiet afternoons in the courtyard, where unspoken gestures lingered in the air. On a seemingly ordinary Monday, Miss Carter made her entrance, a wrapped package cradled under her arm. Her walk was more measured than before, her shoulders slightly rounded, her eyes a touch less bright. Savannah observed, yet chose not to inquire. She had gained wisdom through experience. Certain matters reveal themselves when the moment is right. They were seated next to each other. "I have a little something for you," Miss Carter said, placing the bundle gently on Savannah's lap. "Take your time. Feel free to open it whenever you feel prepared." Savannah cast her gaze toward her, then shifted her attention to the package, its coarse brown paper bound with twine. With deliberate slowness, she loosened the knot, gently coaxing apart the edges, as if the contents within might evaporate at the slightest rush. As the last crease released its hold, a sharp breath escaped. Her lips. It was a masterpiece on canvas. Not grand, not boisterous, but abundant. A girl sat cross-legged in a field of soft, pale green grass. She was hairless, exposed, yet not diminutive, not unwell. Her eyes were shut, her head reclined against a sunless sky, yet a gentle golden light emanated from her heart, merging with the atmosphere like a breath made tangible. Surrounding her, strewn upon the grass, lay strands of hair, neither lamented nor tangled, simply liberated, as though they had been granted their freedom. Below the figure, in brushstroke, letters that quivered with authenticity, were the words, "You don't need hair to shine, you just need to be seen truthfully." Savannah's hands trembled, her sight becoming hazy. She pressed her fingers to her lips, attempting to contain the emotion. Within, yet it escaped regardless, a sob, low and profound, emerging from depths untouched by words. She had encountered countless depictions of herself previously. Photos, paintings, school accolades, framed moments capturing a girl in motion, perpetually smiling, always styled, forever radiant, crafted for the gaze of others. Yet, this moment marked the very first instance of her being seen. She glanced at Miss Carter, whose face remained serene, hands delicately resting in her lap. "Did you create this artwork?" Savannah inquired, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Miss Carter acknowledged with a nod. "Begun on the day you shared that you no longer recognized who you were. Completed it on the day you were here." Savannah gazed at the painting once more, her tears quietly soaking into her sleeves. The hues held no sympathy, the illumination bore no sorrow, merely existence, merely reality. "It's exquisite," she murmured, though not in the way one might typically imply. "It is correct." Miss Carter emitted a gentle chuckle. "That's the finest variety." After that, Savannah fell silent. There was no necessity for her to do so. She held the painting tightly against her chest, sensing its warmth flow through the canvas and into her very bones. The wind swirled around them, and for the first time, Savannah allowed herself to be carried by it. She allowed it to flow, to rise, to take her away. She felt far from complete, not even remotely. Yet she no longer felt unseen. She felt acknowledged. Spring made its entrance softly. It didn't crash through the door or serenade from the treetops. It slipped in, carried by the gentle warmth of the air, the tender embrace of softer mornings, and a stillness that resonated like a breath rather than mere silence. Savannah began to stroll through the school once more, her confidence unwavering. Her scarf remained snug around her head, yet her shoulders held a new posture, no longer hunched, no longer concealing, As eyes fell upon her, a mix of intrigue and unease, she remained unyielding. She refrained from smiling to ease their discomfort as well. She met their gaze and stood firm, and that was something fresh. In the art room, she confidently opened her sketchbook. She still created spirals at times, swirling, open, wild, yet they no longer resembled storms. They existed in the vastness of the cosmos. Her teacher observed, attempted once more to remark on her development, but Savannah no longer sought her validation. She was aware of the reality. Her art was not required to conform to anyone else's understanding. It simply had to be authentic. Her parents observed her with a sense of wonder, not due to her return to normalcy, but because she had finally stopped pretending. Savannah began to express herself, shifting the focus from illness to her own identity, sharing her exhaustion with being seen as a symbol rather than an individual, and revealing the pain of having people admire her appearance while neglecting her true essence. When she finally spoke, her mother wept, not out of pity, but from the astonishment of truly hearing her daughter for the first time, as she truly was, rather than as she had always been. On a radiant afternoon, Savannah strolled through the courtyard and, without a moment's pause, enveloped Miss Carter in a warm embrace. The elderly woman chuckled, taken aback, her form gentle with the comfort of warmth, age, and labor. "What is the purpose of this?" Savannah drew back slightly to utter her words. "For failing to put in the effort to bring me joy, for being there when words failed me, for recognizing my presence when others merely recalled my existence." Miss Carter tenderly cradled the girl's face, her thumbs softly brushing against the edges of Savannah's jaw. "You handled everything, darling. I simply continued to be present." However, Savannah declined with a shake of her head. "That's the aspect that often gets overlooked. That's the moment that rescued me. In the days that ensued, everything transformed. Not the entire world, not at this moment, but the very earth that supports it." Savannah walked up to her father with a calm assurance. She shared with him the story of Miss Carter's sister, the painting, and all those fleeting moments that never found their way into report cards or school board discussions. And she inquired about something particular, something genuine. The aftermath was not marked by any grand proclamation. It involved a series of documents, subtle endorsements, and a steady stream of emails. Miss Carter's sister, after a year on a hospital wait list, has finally secured funding for lifelong dialysis care, fully covered and without any expiration. A scholarship was established in Miss Carter's honor, not solely for artists but also for caretakers, for those who remained, for those who quietly looked after others. Without the glare of cameras or the buzz of headlines, it's all about the process of restoration. When Savannah presented Miss Carter with the letter that confirmed the scholarship, the woman remained motionless, her fingers quivering above the envelope. "What motivates you to take this action on my behalf?" Savannah beamed, her gaze bright, her tone unwavering. "Since no one else would have considered it, your impact on my life didn't require a stage. All you required was a bench." Miss Carter remained, composed, yet she took a seat as though the moment had paused for her. As she gazed at Savannah, truly gazed, a flicker of pride danced in her eyes. The gentle sort, the sort that endures. That spring, Savannah had transformed into someone entirely different. She had transformed into something extraordinary, unbroken, lacking courage, simply accurate. The last day of the school year arrived adorned in golden hues. The atmosphere radiated a warmth that enveloped the skin, settling into the fabric of collars and sleeves. In the expansive atrium of Wellington Academy, pristine white chairs were arranged in meticulous lines, all oriented towards a stage adorned in the school's distinctive navy and gold. Parents settled into their seats, exchanging courteous whispers. Students straightened their ties and hairbands. Educators practiced the cheerful expressions they had maintained throughout the year. The ceremony seemed flawless in every way. However, an unforeseen event occurred. Just prior to the closing remarks, the head of school gracefully stepped aside, allowing space for a concluding presentation. A towering easel, draped in a linen cloth, was brought to the heart of the stage. "Skip," the introduction. No elaboration, just the soft whisper of wonder expanding like gentle waves. As the fabric was drawn aside, a whisper of intrigue swept across the gathering. It was a masterpiece on canvas, not adorned in luxury, not refined to flawlessness, but captivating in its authenticity. A black woman sat beneath a sprawling tree, her hands gently placed on her knees, her gaze directed outward, neither down nor up, but straight ahead. There was a serene strength in her demeanor, as if she had witnessed the weight of the world yet chose to remain steadfast. Next to her was a young girl, bald, glowing, beaming with a broad smile that sparkled with joy. The two figures remained, apart, yet the air between them shimmered with an ethereal light. Not with sunlight, but with an essence more profound, something woven from the fabric of existence. At the base of the canvas, with intentional strokes, were the words, "She swept away my fear so I could see the light was never in my hair." The audience held their breath. A few adjusted their positions in their chairs. Some leaned in closer. Only a handful grasped the essence. Savannah observed from the rear of the room, her hands resting elegantly in her lap. Her scarf had vanished, not as an act of rebellion, not as a display, but in tranquility. Her head reflected the light like polished stone, her gaze unwavering, her smile subtle yet confident. She had no need to take the spotlight. Her truth existed all along. In the dim light of the room, Miss Carter lingered near a side pillar, partially cloaked in shadow. She wasn't adorned in finery, nor did she don a name tag. Yet, when her gaze intertwined with Savannah's, they exchanged a smile that spoke volumes, one that craved no audience. It simply is. Following the ceremony, individuals would stroll past the painting. Some might describe it as exquisite. Some might consider it courageous. There are those who simply wouldn't grasp it. Yet those who truly counted, the ones who lingered after. The chairs were tucked away and the lights faded, remained for a while longer. It was allowed to convey its message to them, and some inexplicably departed with a sense of transformation. Savannah was content without having the final say. She possessed something superior. She had transformed into her own form. She had discovered. That true illumination does not stem from accolades, validation, or the memories others hold of you. It arises from being recognized for your true self and the decision to remain present. Come along and engage with us as we explore impactful narratives by clicking the like and subscribe buttons. Remember to activate the notification bell to begin your day with deep insights and genuine compassion.